Hello. Welcome,
Hello.
everyone, to another episode of the Dr. Davis, Dr. Pierce Q&A. This is our, third one that we've done now?
That sounds about right. Third or
I
fourth.
think so. Yeah,
Yep.
it seems to be popular, so we figured why not? We'll just keep doing it.
Let's do it.
So welcome, everybody. If you want to let us know where you are watching from, not, like location-wise, of course, we're going to have people watching on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, but just interested to see where around the world people are watching from. We are going, so this is, just a Q&A. So we do have some questions that people have submitted early on that we can get to. And then if you have any questions while we're chatting, feel free to post them in the comments wherever you're watching from, and we will try to get to as many as we can today. We've only got an hour, but we will definitely try to answer what we can. We've got somebody in San Luis Obispo, California. Wonderful.
That's a beautiful place. Have you ever
Beautiful.
spent
I
any
know.
time in San Luis? Oh man.
Yeah. So pretty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Looks like we've got some good questions posted. It's a pleasure to be doing this again with you, Nikki. Shall we dive in?
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. So we have Rosie F, who says, "Hi, I'm a vegan RN, registered nurse, who's switching to whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, and sugar-free, and was hoping you would be able to answer one of my questions. Do you think it's worthwhile to have one's cortisol levels checked?" All right. Well, I would say it depends. And first of all, I'm going to just, let everyone know, we're here to give general advice, general education, I would say, not medical advice. And if you have a very specific medical question, we definitely would recommend that you check out our website, telehealth.love.life, and make an appointment with one of our doctors so that we can talk through those more specific medical questions. But in answering the cortisol level question, I would say it depends, because do I think that you should just go to your doctor and ask to have your cortisol levels checked? No, I don't think that it's worth just screening to check for cortisol level issues. There are some diseases that can cause your cortisol levels to be either elevated or decreased. And certainly if you're having symptoms that would lead your physician to think that there might be an issue with cortisol levels, whether it's, sometimes you can get a tumor in your pituitary gland, you can have issues with your adrenal gland. And if that's the case, then that can cause some problems with your cortisol levels. But I would recommend, if you're concerned with some of your symptoms, you're concerned that it could possibly be something to do with cortisol, then possibly your physician would order that test. I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Pierce?
Yeah, I think I feel the same way. I think Cushing syndrome is the classic one where folks people with Cushing's might have weight gain, but that's mostly central with thinning arms and legs, kind of a round face. They call it a kind of a full moon type face. Fat around the base of the neck, stretch marks, weak muscles, things like this. That would be, if someone is experiencing those symptoms, that's go to your doc, say, hey, these symptoms are concerning. Could this be Cushing's? And your doc will draw some cortisol levels and go from there. I think why a lot of people nowadays are thinking about the cortisol is because it's kind of in vogue, and like, oh, what does my cortisol say? And what does that say about me being stressed? And I tell most people that, if you're stressed without a cortisol level, and a single cortisol level, it doesn't really tell us a ton. It, maybe, seeing a raised cortisol level will help people say, okay, yeah, it looks like my cortisol's up. I am stressed. I need to work more on mindfulness and meditation and relaxing and things like that. But I don't think we need a cortisol level for that. Now, functional medicine docs look at this differently, and that's part of their expertise, and definitely feel free to talk to someone in that realm if that is something that for those folks who want to pursue that, but typically not something that I look at outside of Cushing's.
Yeah, Cushing's, and there's Addison's that would
Mhm.
be, so Cushing's is more high cortisol levels, which can actually, a lot of people with Cushing's can have high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes. So sometimes we'll have someone with type 2 diabetes, um, where we notice, like you mentioned, like the fat pad on the back of the neck or the moon faces. And if we see that, then we would look at testing for Cushing's. But then Addison's disease, which is just adrenal insufficiency, is also, that's where you have low cortisol. So definitely, if you're concerned about it, talk to your doctor. But in general, that's not a typical annual preventive set of lab tests that as family doctors that we would add. Great question, because I do get asked a lot about checking cortisol levels.
And congrats, by the way, for going whole food plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free. You will likely see some big gains in your health goals with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next one is from Marianne McMasters. She says her endocrinologist just told her that there's no such thing as type 1.5 diabetic. There's only one type 2. I'm assuming she means only type 2 or type 1. What do you think, Dr. Pierce?
Well, that kind of surprises me. I think I don't follow the latest endocrinology association headlines, and so I don't know if there's a move away from that. But certainly, endocrinologists and generalists, internists, family docs, etc., have been talking about type 1.5 for a long time. It's not like I don't think it's something made up. The idea is that typically type 1 is the type of diabetes associated with autoimmune disease, often diagnosed in childhood, and type 2 diabetes being the vastly most common cause of diabetes, with insulin resistance as the root cause, and generally seen in people who are overweight or obese, with sedentary lifestyles and family histories of it. And type 1.5 is a little bit different because it's kind of a little bit of both. Maybe it starts in adulthood typically, and might be misdiagnosed as type 2 at first, but then you and your doc are realizing that those pills for diabetes that you've been put on aren't working, and you can do some lab tests that show that there is some autoimmune components with antibodies against the insulin forming cells in the pancreas. So yeah, type 1.5 seems like real thing as far as I know. Not sure where that person's coming from, but good to follow up with him or her and ask why they are saying some things different than maybe other endocrinologists around town. Maybe they've got the secret that we just don't know yet.
Well, and ultimately, when we're talking about the difference between, you mentioned it, so type 2 is insulin resistance. Your body is not using insulin appropriately, or not able to use insulin the way that someone without diabetes would be able to use it. Whereas type 1 is really your pancreas is just not functioning. It's not able to produce that insulin. So type 1.5 is where your pancreas is still producing some insulin, but not enough. And what we typically will see in someone who's type 1.5 is maybe their weight is actually, they're not overweight, they're not obese, they have either a normal weight or maybe they're even underweight. And that's where we start looking at, well, could this be something called LADA, LADA, latent autoimmune diabetes of adulthood, where it can be an autoimmune process that happens later in life, and it doesn't destroy all of the pancreatic cells, the beta cells that produce insulin, but it does affect the way that your pancreas works. So you're not producing enough insulin. And so I will have, I have some type 1.5 diabetics in my practice. And what I see is that as they go whole food plant-based, they remove that insulin resistance component. So they're removing that, type 2 diabetes part of the diabetes, if that exists. And then they do usually require some small dose of insulin, but it's usually a lot less than what a type 1 diabetic might use for insulin. So for instance, if you have type 1 diabetes and you're using 20 units of insulin a day, a type 1.5 diabetic might use, say, 3 units a day. So very, very small amount, just enough to, make sure that you have enough insulin in your body to be able to get that glucose out of your bloodstream into the cells to make energy. So I see this all the time, and it's definitely something that, if you've been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, but maybe you have a pretty low weight and, you're wondering, boy, do I have type 1.5 diabetes? It's worth checking. And that's something that we will test for all the time at Love Life.
That's a nice summary. All this talk about diabetes makes me think of our friends at Mastering Diabetes. They do such a great job as well. And so you might want to check them out. They'll have stuff on their website talking about type 1.5. Their program was founded by two adult guys with type 1 diabetes. And then the other thing I would mention is that don't forget that folks with type 1 diabetes can also have an amount of insulin resistance and be using what we would call super therapeutic levels of insulin, meaning that instead of needing something like 20 or 25 units of insulin throughout the day for someone who's making no insulin at all, you might see that you're using 30, 40, 50 units. And when you adopt a healthy lifestyle, high complex carb, low fat, with exercise and good sleep and stress management and some fasting, you'll see going back down to physiologic amounts, normal amounts of insulin requirements is also something that you can see as a type 1 diabetic.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I've seen that before with my type 1 diabetics, that as they switch to a healthier diet, get daily movement, that they do seem to require less insulin over time. So that's great. All right, great question. Let's see. So next one is, this was a voicemail that was left for us. I love that. What is lifestyle medicine? And do I have to be a vegan to be seen by a lifestyle medicine doctor? All right. So I will take the first one. I'll take what is lifestyle medicine. So lifestyle medicine, we've got the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, the American Board of Lifestyle Medicine, and international as well. But the American College of Lifestyle Medicine basically says that lifestyle medicine is 6 pillars of health, and that includes a healthy whole food plant-based diet, daily movement, stress management, good quality sleep, staying away from toxins, and then positive psychology and social connectedness. So those are the 6 pillars. And so as a lifestyle medicine doctor, we help people navigate making healthy lifestyle changes in any of those areas. And I will say that for me, one of the biggest areas people come to me for is the diet part of it. And you will notice that the College of Lifestyle Medicine isn't saying just a healthy diet. They are saying a healthy whole food plant-based diet because of, this is evidence-based. So lifestyle medicine is all about evidence. We're using all of the evidence that we have. And in looking at all of that, it looks like for human health, a healthy whole food plant-based diet is best. But we meet people in all different places of where they are. And so I will say not all of my patients are vegan or whole food plant-based. Not all of them want to go completely 100% whole food plant-based. Just because that is what we would recommend isn't necessarily where all of our patients are or what their goals are. So what do you think, Dr. Pierce?
Cool. Yes, I agree. And the second half of that question, do you have to be a vegan to see a lifestyle medicine doc? No, just like you were saying, we meet people where they are, and maybe for you, what is going to be sustainable and will meet your healthcare goals is that the majority of your food is, healthy whole plant-based meals like, salads and veggie soups and veggie pastas and veggie stir fries and all these things. And, once a week you have a little bit of animal product. And if that's what ends up being your, the spot for you that works best and everything else is humming along, well, then we'll support you with that. Right. There are some folks who who try that but can't. It ends up being like 4 times a week or 5 times a week or 7 times a week, and that doesn't work. And so I encourage folks to get as close to 100% whole food plant-based as possible. But everybody's different. We gotta see what is going to be sustainable in the long run, right? Because if someone says, "Oh, I can definitely eat 100% vegan for the next 6 days," let's see if I'm all fixed by that point. Well, then that's not going to be what we're aiming for, right? We need something
Right.
that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah. And by the way, if I might have someone come to me saying, I eat an omnivorous diet, but I really need help with quitting drinking alcohol, or I need help with sleeping better. And that is absolutely a reason to come see us. You do not have to be vegan or even considering going vegan or plant-based. It might just be that you need help with some of those pillars of lifestyle medicine. And by the way, also realizing that being vegan and being plant-based or whole food plant-based are two different things, right? Veganism is really this way of living that is all about not consuming or using any animal products. So it's really taking things away, not eating meat, not eating cheese, not eating eggs, not wearing leather, things like that. Whereas a whole food plant-based diet is more about the health aspects of eating more plant foods. So, being a vegan does not necessarily mean that that's healthy, right? Because as you know, French fries are vegan, Impossible Burgers are vegan, Oreos are vegan, and you can live a very unhealthy lifestyle eating as just a vegan. So we definitely promote, if you are interested in changing your diet and eating a healthier diet, considering a whole food plant-based diet. All right. I got the cool nod from Dr. Pierce. I love it. That's like the look that I get from my son all the time. Like,
I like your son.
I do too. It's pretty fun. All right. So next question is from Darlene S. And this is on YouTube. Have you had patients with hip osteoarthritis who got improvement from diet? What do you think? Have you had that with any of your patients?
Hip osteoarthritis, I don't know specifically that I can remember. Osteoarthritis, let's just take a step back to say that is the most common type of arthritis. When most people are referring to, "Oh, I've got arthritis in my hands," they hurt when it's cold, or they hurt at the end of the day. That people are talking about osteoarthritis. And there's definitely a big mechanical component about that, right? A lot of people have it in their knees. A lot of people have it in these weight-bearing joints. Because cartilage, which is that sort of cushiony layer of cells, specialized tissue in between the bones and the joint, cartilage wears down. There ends up being bone on bone and stress with that, and that's painful. But we've also found out that there's a strong inflammatory component with that type of arthritis as well. And so when speaking about osteoarthritis in general, you can see people get much better with switching to a really clean diet. And when I say clean diet, when I see folks are like, "Hey, I've got arthritis, what can we do to minimize this?" I think inflammation. So how can we add anti-inflammatory compounds to the diet? How can we take away the inflammatory components of the diet? And then what other aspects of lifestyle medicine play a role, right? So with diet, I think of adding really anti-inflammatory spices, ginger, turmeric, berries, thinking about fruits in general, but berries are really good. Whole grains can be good based on studies. Actually, I'm recently was looking at the chapter in How Not to Age by Michael Greger, Dr. Michael Greger. I think he has a nice chapter summarizing research on anti-inflammatory type foods. And a lot of those are included. I want to say that legumes are in there too. So basically, most components, if not all components of healthy whole food plant diet can help. For a lot of folks, eggs and dairy and meats can be can have inflammatory components, can make things worse. And then focusing on, are we getting good restorative sleep? Those 7 to 9 hours of sleep, that's so important. Are we getting some time to de-stress, connect with nature, connect with others, and all this stuff comes together to help with osteoarthritis. What do you think, Nikki?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, whenever you have that inflammatory component to it, that is something that can be improved through lifestyle. I have had several patients with osteoarthritis who've reported improvement in their symptoms and their pain. Normally, does it go completely away? I would say not in everyone, but I have had some cases where maybe it's just a mild osteoarthritis that does seem to improve quite a bit by switching over to a low inflammatory diet, which is really just plants, right? Plant foods. So yeah, absolutely, it's very possible to get some improvement through healthy lifestyle changes, specifically plant-based diets. All right. Okay, next one is from our Facebook uh, page. Or sorry, it says Facebook on there, but now it's saying from Instagram. How much does drinking alcohol add to cholesterol issues?
Hmm.
Okay. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking, I know that triglyceride levels that are in your cholesterol, your lipid panel, your lipid panel includes cholesterol and triglycerides. So you've got cholesterol, and then the triglycerides are more like the fat that's running through your blood, not the cholesterol. And triglycerides can be affected by simple sugars, which alcohol is. So if you do drink a lot of alcohol, you can have an increase in your triglycerides. I don't know that I have heard of alcohol affecting, say, LDL. I don't know. What do you think, Dr. Pierce? Have you heard of that? One moment. One moment,
Yeah.
please.
Moment, please. Try not to. Yeah, no, I was going to say triglycerides as well. That's the main thing that alcohol raises, to my knowledge. You can see, I think, an improvement in HDL with drinking. And just to remind everybody, LDL, the two main types of cholesterol that we focus on. LDL, you can think of L for lethal or bad cholesterol. HDL, for the H for healthy cholesterol. HDL acts as apparently as the sort of garbage collectors that helps to get cholesterol out of the body. But it turns out that HDL, so for a long time we were saying HDL, HDL, try to do things to increase your HDL, and that'll get rid of your bad cholesterol, get it out of your body. Turns out that the medications that have been made to raise our HDL haven't met the goals that we were hoping they would. They haven't seemed to improve outcomes, increase life and lifespan and decrease risk of dying from a heart attack, stuff like that. And so we find that when your total cholesterol falls, your LDL falls and your HDL falls, but that's fine. I never tell people to worry that their HDL is going down as long as that LDL, that lethal cholesterol, is going down, because that's the one that's most tied to these important outcomes like dying from a heart attack and stroke. So all of that to say is I would not, increase your alcohol intake to try to boost your HDL, your healthy cholesterol. If you we used to say, by the way, that drinking alcohol was cardiac protective, heart protective, but probably that's not accurate, and that if you decide to drink, don't do it for health reasons. Do it as moderately as possible, or not at all. And if do it when with a friend, socializing in a safe way, I think is how some people look at it. But don't think that you're doing it and staving off a heart attack with it. Is just the general gist of it.
Yep, I agree. All right. Lindsay is asking, how long does a whole food plant-based no oil detox last?
Hmm.
I'm on month 5 and still experiencing extreme fatigue from doing small tasks. B12, thyroid, and vitamin D levels are all within normal. Anything else I should test for?
Hmm.
Okay, so great questions. I would say definitely it's worth talking to a doctor about, because there are a lot of things that can be going on here that we just don't know until we really get into it and really discuss more. Um, so we can't necessarily give you medical advice on what you should test for. But as far as the detox goes, when you are switching over to a whole food plant-based diet, you tend to eat more fiber. And when you're eating more fiber, that's going to change your gut microbiome. That's going to change the levels of the bacteria that live in your gut. And sometimes that can cause some increased gas, some maybe a little bit of GI upset as you're kind of getting used to this additional fiber in your diet. And it does take some time. I won't say it takes 5 months. I think usually it's a lot less time than that, maybe less than a month, for you to kind of, get your body regulated to this new way of eating. So if you are, if you're still having symptoms, say when you eat beans, every time you eat beans, you just swell up and you get really bloated. That's something to bring up to your doctor and let them know about, just so that we can make sure there isn't something else going on there. Sometimes I'll recommend to people in the beginning, if you really are truly going from more of a standard American diet to a whole food plant-based diet, that you can take like a supplement like Beanzyme. It's kind of like a Beano, but it's a vegan version of it, to help with some of that excess gas just while you're kind of going through that transition period. Um, but yeah, so as far as the extreme fatigue, boy, that's a tricky one. There are lots and lots of things that can cause fatigue. So it is definitely worth, if you're having fatigue, extreme fatigue from doing small tasks, that's concerning. And I think it's good that you had some levels checked already, but definitely something you need to look into more.
Yeah. That's a really broad, what we call a broad differential to come up with. What are all the possibilities that can cause fatigue? If all of a sudden you can't see out of your right eye, there are just a few things that can cause that, right? Your retina detaches, you have a clot in one of the blood vessels, you have your eye closed. There's like four things that can be going on. But for fatigue, it's a long list, right? It's anywhere from organ system stuff like advanced liver disease, advanced kidney disease, autoimmune disease, cancer, chronic infections. We mentioned Cushing's earlier today, that could cause the fatigue. Mental, psychological stuff, depression can lead to it. And
Sleep apnea can
sleep
cause
apnea.
daytime
Yeah,
fatigue,
exactly.
low iron,
Just
issues with your blood cells.
so it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a list, as long as your arm. So totally agree with Dr. Davis here to see a doc and keep working on it, because if you're still experiencing extreme fatigue from doing small tasks, it's not just because you're not eating enough kale. There's something deeper going on, and eating kale will help overall, but you got to find what else is going on.
Yeah. All right. From Instagram, what is one thing you wish you knew when you first went vegan?
Hmm.
Okay. I guess I would say um, how easy it can be,
Mm.
how simple it can be.
Mm.
I think a lot of people who are transitioning to more of a whole food plant-based diet, they're imagining, okay, I have to hang out in the kitchen for a few hours every day, making meals, chopping, preparing, and then on the weekends, I'm preparing for several hours for the week, and I'm just going to be living in the kitchen. And you certainly can do that if you enjoy it. But for me, I think what really helps me be able to be successful with eating this way is really keeping things really simple and easy. So I use a lot of frozen, a lot of shelf stable. I have a lot of things that can just be heated up quickly. And on occasion, I will still spend extra time in the kitchen when I have it. But when I don't have the time, I try to keep things really, really simple. All right, Dr. Pierce, you've had time to think. What is your one thing you wish you
Tough
knew?
question. It's a tough question. I mean, I think some people, when they first go vegan, maybe for doing it for ethical reasons, they focus on doing everything they can to not eat the animal products, and so they're eating a lot more of the, like processed animal-like foods, like the burgers and the hot dogs and the stuff like that, and that's usually not the healthiest thing. And so down the road, as you learn more about the really healthy things are, some basics, right? Peasant food, as we say sometimes, right? Beans and rice and things like that. So yeah, I'm sure I did I'm sure I did more of that then than I do now. So I'm gonna stick with that because it's a good question. It's kind of a hard one. Yeah.
Well, and I actually agree with you because, and that might be, I'm going to take your answer as my number one answer because that's probably a big one where when I initially went vegan, it was more for the planet, for the animals. It was a little bit for my health as well. Um, but I will be honest in that I really truly thought that by eating vegan, which meant no animal foods, that equated to health.
Mhm.
And so I was fine with eating all of the processed vegan foods that were out there, thinking that I was, by eating a vegan brownie, that was fine, no problem, because it didn't have milk in it, right? And that, so I do wish that when I initially went vegan, that I knew more about the health benefits of eating a plant-based, whole food plant-based diet, free of the processed foods, because there were several years there where I did rely on a lot of processed vegan foods. And, I mean, it is what it is. And now I'm here doing what I'm doing. And I guess maybe it's good that I went through that experience so that other people who I talk to and patients that I have, I can relate to what they're going through if they're struggling to remove those processed foods. But yeah, that would be one thing that it would have been nice to know, that going vegan does not automatically mean healthy. Okay, so next question. Christy, being whole food plant-based can change your life in more ways than just your health. It's helped me get sober, given me a career, connected me with amazing people, and so much more. It's so, so true. And boy, it's funny. Yeah, thank you for the comment, Christy. Uh, it actually reminds me of a patient that I have who initially wanted to improve her type 1.5 diabetes by going to a whole food plant-based diet. And she saw some improvements. And once she felt like she was really good at the diet part, doing really well, was on a very low amount of insulin, then she said, okay, I want to start working on these other pillars of lifestyle medicine. And so she also was able to go sober, and that obviously changed her life as well. So working on all of those different lifestyle factors has been a huge thing for her as well. So I appreciate you sharing that, Christy. That's really great. Okay, on Instagram we have, what are some beginner-friendly meals or staples to start with when transitioning to a plant-based diet? What do you think, Dr. Pierce? I'll let you start.
A great question. It pertains to everybody as they're just starting out. The good news about eating healthy is that it doesn't have to be complicated. I love being in the kitchen, but I don't enjoy 30 ingredient recipes that take 2 hours to make. Maybe we'll do something fancy for the holidays or something like that. But I think the majority of folks around the world make a handful, maybe 10-ish dishes that they just rotate through all the time, right? And you just want to have 5 to 10 things that are just easy to do, that you can do without a cookbook, and that can be thrown together quickly. So I think the general idea that we often do here and that I recommend to folks is know how to prepare something in the bean family. That's the legume family: beans, lentils, chickpeas, split peas. Know how to make a whole grain, typically brown rice, black rice, quinoa, amaranth, millet, something like that. Whole grain pasta. And add vegetables in a sauce to it, right? And you've got a meal. And so we almost always have that in the fridge. We have containers of the whole grains that we made last night and containers of the legume dish that we made, and then that'll be lunch the next day. If you make enough, you can keep some in the freezer. So yeah, it's amazing how simple, inexpensive foods are some of the healthiest for us, right? Like if you buy bulk beans and buy bulk brown rice, grow some greens in a pot on your balcony, and you've got cheap and healthy food at your fingertips. So I think that's a good one. And then the second approach would be just take whatever dishes you enjoy eating already as an omnivore, and just plantify them. You want to talk more about that, Nikki?
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to look at transitioning is thinking about, well, what do you already enjoy and how can I make that something that is whole food plant-based? So if you really like, say as your family always does Taco Tuesday night, you can still do that. But instead of those greasy, oily taco shells that you buy at the store, you buy the little corn tortillas that you throw in your air fryer and crisp up. Yep, they're about that big, about that big. Not to be confused with this, but I'll do that with you anyway. Um, but yeah, you can crisp those up in your air fryer, get them nice and crispy. So it's like a tostada, right? And you can actually also buy these little gadgets where you can put your own little corn tortilla into your oven, and it will take the shape of a taco shell. So you can make your own little tacos. Yeah, it's like a little metal
Whoa.
I don't know,
Yeah.
little metal
Like a
device
rack
that, yeah.
almost.
What's that?
Is it like a rack almost?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's like a rack, but then yeah, as it's crisping up, it's taking the shape. So you can make your own taco shells very easily, and those are very inexpensive as well. You can buy a big bag of those corn tortillas. And then instead of doing like ground beef with taco spices, now you're doing, tofu crumbles or soy curls or even just beans, fat-free refried beans, black beans, pinto beans, and then of course all the delicious stuff that goes on top, like shredded lettuce and tomatoes and avocados and olives if you like olives, salsa. I feel like I might need some tacos tonight now that we're talking
Yeah,
about
is it
this.
Tuesday? No, yeah.
But and then also, I mean, everybody likes spaghetti, although I will say I'm not a big fan. Most people love spaghetti. They love marinara sauce. And that's such an easy one. Instead of having big meatballs in there and cheese and milk in the sauce, you're just finding one that's a fat-free marinara, or you're making your own that is not too difficult to make, and just don't do the meat in there. But you're still getting the pasta, you're still getting the sauce. So you can take those common things that you're already used to and then, like you said, plantify them. And that's a really nice way to transition so you don't feel like you're starting from square one. Other staples that I have always in my house, I will say, like you, I rely on soups a lot. They're so easy to just throw a bunch of stuff. I mean, if you have an instant pot, it makes it really easy. But you throw everything in there, push the button, let it cook, make a big batch, and then you can freeze or put stuff in the fridge, and then you have soup for the week. And that's a really good way of getting greens and getting beans, getting some of these really important foods, whole grains in there. So you can add all of those to your soup. And then I always make sure that I have sweet potatoes and potatoes that I can cook up and have in the fridge ready to heat up at any time. Rice. So I use these frozen rice packets from Trader Joe's that is just a one single serving, and throw those in the microwave, and I've got my starch. So a lot of times when I'm looking at my plate, I'm thinking, what's my starch that's going to be what fills me up, and then what's my non-starch. So I mean, sometimes for lunch I'll just do rice and some air fried broccoli or cauliflower, and that's the meal. So I always recommend that people have stuff in their freezer and their pantry that is easy and easy to grab at all times, so that you're not worried about always needing to have fresh, because fresh stuff can go bad unless you have a garden that you can go and pick fresh all the time like you do.
Mm.
Um, but otherwise, making sure that you always have something in the house that is easy to grab at any moment. So that's, for me, those staples are going to be, canned beans, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, frozen veggies, frozen fruit, frozen berries.
We're talking a lot about switching over, and Christy's going to put something in the chat there for us. PCRM's Vegan Kickstart. To add to Nikki's awesome recommendations, this is a nice little app basically that helps you with these beginning first sort of transition type things. They have like shopping lists and recipes and little videos, and I think that fits in nicely with what we've been talking about on some of these questions today.
Great. And I will also throw in there that there's another really good jumpstart program through the Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute.
Yeah.
And it's just I think it's a 15-day, what they call it, a 15-day jumpstart program. Very inexpensive. I've had several of my patients go through it. I don't know that I've ever had anyone come back saying that wasn't worth it. Usually people have really significant improvements. They feel great, and it's very motivating for them. And I have people who do this 2-week program, even if they have been plant-based for a while, but they're maybe struggling with staying away from certain foods, you know, and they just really kind of needed a kickstart, jumpstart, and they really like knowing exactly what they're going to eat. You know, they give you grocery list and recipes for the entire 2 weeks so that you can just really focus on that. And then you get lots of education as well.
Yeah. Rochester, the folks at Rochester Lifestyle Medicine are awesome. And that one is live as compared to the PCRM one, which is just an app. Yeah. Rochester one's so nice. Yeah.
All right. Let's see if we have any other questions. All right, so this is Instagram. I'm seeing online that people are experiencing positive health outcomes from the carnivore diet. For example, weight loss, increased energy, improved blood work. Is that possible, or is it snake oil? What do you think? Do you want to start with this one?
Sure. I'm not a specialist in the carnivore diet. I think there is probably, so take this for what you will, there are probably a large chunk of folks who try the carnivore diet that do see improvements if they are getting rid of a lot of the processed foods that are bad for all of us, right? Regardless of what the rest of our diet is. So if someone goes from eating a highly ultra processed diet, sodas and all chips and pastries and all this kind of stuff, to switching to carnivore by leaving those ultra processed foods behind, there are going to be some improvements in weight and energy and things like that. The main thing to take away from carnivore, and certainly I want to folks who believe strongly in carnivore can be quite vocal, so I'm not I don't want to goad anybody, but unfortunately we don't have any long-term studies that show what does this do to things like colon cancer risk, heart attack risk, stroke risk, autoimmune disease, and all of those conditions that are associated with eating high amounts of saturated fat and not getting enough fiber. And so I personally would not recommend, I can't think of anyone that I would recommend to be on a carnivore diet. I think there's room for lots of variations of healthy diets, with a healthy Mediterranean diet and the Dean Ornish diet and the, and a whole food plant-based diet. I think there's some wiggle room and a lot of things that those things have in common. Carnivore is so far out side of those things that in general, I think you would do much better by following one of those other diets that we've been talking about.
So, Dr. Pierce, I just have to say, you are so nice. I love that how, you're not going to try to goad these people. And all I can think is, please, please, please don't eat a carnivore diet. Please. If you want to live a long, healthy life, please don't do it. There's no evidence to support doing it. In fact, we know that when you eat lots of saturated fat, zero fiber, it's bad for you. It's bad for your overall health in so many different ways. So now, yes, you can have weight loss, increased energy, and some improvements in blood work. And why is that? So you touched on that already. removing processed foods from the diet, but you're also starving yourself, right? So you're putting yourself into starvation mode because your body, its primary fuel source is glucose. That is what your body prefers. So when it has the choice, it's going to choose glucose as its fuel for energy production. Uh, so if you take that away, your body thankfully has the ability. So if you're starving, if you can't find glucose, your body has the ability to put you into ketosis. And so that you can make energy using other sources that aren't its first primary goal of glucose, right? So you can go into ketosis. So this was meant to be a survival mechanism so that we can survive, being in a place where we're starving, but it was never meant to be something that that is how you live your life every single day. And we know that because of the mechanisms in the body prefer glucose as the primary fuel source. So can you have weight loss if you're starving? Can you have increased energy? Can you have improved blood work? Certainly you can, but this is temporary. And I have a lot of patients who come to me who have tried a carnivore diet, tried a keto diet, tried a low carb diet, and it is not sustainable. They feel terrible. They're constipated. They honestly, most of the time, they don't have great energy. And they're coming to me saying, this isn't working for me. I've been looking online and it looks like maybe a plant-based diet might be better. They switch over to a whole food plant-based diet and they not only feel great and they have the weight loss, they have the increased energy, they have the improved blood work, but it turns out that people who eat more of a plant-based diet tend to live longer and have less chronic disease over time. So if you want those kind of same benefits, but with a diet that is sustainable, something you can do for the rest of your life, that's a wonderful way of eating. I can't imagine choking down meat as the only thing every single day. That just sounds horrible. And I think that most people are logical enough that they can look at that and say, that doesn't make sense. Why would I not be eating these blackberries that are on this bush that look delicious to me? If I look at an animal, it doesn't look delicious to me, but those berries look delicious. It's logic, right? Anyway, I'm gonna get off my soapbox right now. I appreciate you allowing me. But yes, I would definitely never, ever, ever recommend a carnivore diet. That's it. I'm done.
We'll put we'll put in the we'll put in the comments a nice short article from Harvard Health on what's a carnivore diet and what's associated with it. We'll throw that in the comments.
Perfect.
All right.
All right. Going on. So from Instagram, does microwaving veggies affect their nutrient content? Or do the benefits of eating more veggies, even if microwaved, outweigh any deficiencies?
I can start with this one.
Yeah, please.
Um, the microwave should not be feared, as long as functioning properly. But yeah, it's interesting how studies have been done on food prep. Like, okay, if you take broccoli, is it better to steam it? Is it better to microwave it? Is it better to eat it raw, etc.? And some foods actually get lose some nutrients when you cook them in certain ways, and other foods, their nutrients are boosted when you cook them in certain ways, and some improve with microwaving and some do fine with sauteing. I would say you would lose a lot. You would only have losses if you're deep frying all of your broccoli. But generally speaking, microwave is fine. If you had the option of a steamed Twinkie and a microwaved broccoli, always go with microwave broccoli. I don't think of I don't think about that. I don't say when I'm making food, I don't say, well, geez, if I'm going to get some health out of this stuff that I pick from the garden, I better only steam it or water saute it or something. The main thing is that you're eating these great healthy foods. So cool. Use your microwave and don't be afraid. Good question.
Yes, and I agree completely. All right, Eugene is asking, does corn cause inflammation? Hmm. Well, corn is what I would consider a staple. I think it is a somewhat starchy food, so it is filling. It's something that humans have been eating for a long, long time and doing really well with it. I know that some people are concerned with certain foods causing some inflammation. For the most part, most people do fine with corn. You know, if when you eat corn, you feel terrible and you notice some symptoms after eating it, then maybe talk to your doctor about that and see if it might be something that you're not tolerating very well. But for the most part, corn is not something that you need to worry about causing inflammation, in my opinion. What do you think?
High fructose corn syrup, yes.
Yeah.
Inflammation. Corn for almost everybody. No, I learned this not too long ago that there is a when someone who has rheumatoid arthritis. So this is not the type of arthritis we were talking about earlier, which is osteoarthritis. Rheumatoid arthritis, which is very much an autoimmune condition. Uh, Joints feel like it's maybe hard to open and close your hands first thing in the morning. The symptoms tend to be worse when you first wake up and get a little bit better during the day. Um, Often treated with anti-inflammatory medications and as well as lifestyle. But for a subset of people with rheumatoid arthritis, there are certain foods that are the culprit. It might be dairy, it might be eggs, it might be occasionally something kind of random like apples or corn. And so you might be that person. But in the general population, I'm sure the vast majority of people tolerate corn well. Huge fan of corn. Just try to get it in its healthiest forms, right? So much of corn out there is grown, GMO corn grown for feeding animals. That doesn't do the animals any good. Doesn't do us any good. When you're eating corn, you have a choice between corn chips and corn on the cob. When you're eating corn on the cob, you have a choice between freshly steamed delicious corn on the cob or something that's covered with butter and bacon bits. And so it depends on how you get your corn, and how you eat it, that is. And so I'm a big fan of corn. Go for it, eat it every day, unless you happen to be one of those people with rheumatoid arthritis with a corn sensitivity. But see your doctor specifically.
Yes. All right. Lindsay is asking, what is the sweet spot, the optimal level for vitamin D3? All right. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if you and I have the same kind of thought on
Mm.
this, but I, first of all, I try to help my patients get vitamin D naturally. So through the sunshine, through sunshine, your skin gets exposed to the sun, and then your body makes vitamin D. And that is the best way to make sure that your levels are good. Now you have to also weigh that with not getting too much sun exposure to where you're increasing now your skin cancer risk. So you want to get just enough, but not too much. And so that, I mean, it can easily be 10 minutes a day of just getting some exposure on your arms and your face. So as far as levels go, if you can't get your levels up above, I would say the minimum is kind of 20. 30 is technically normal. But if you can't get above 20 using sunshine, then there's a chance that you may need a supplement. And what I usually tell people is if you're supplementing, I really don't want you supplementing to where you're, increasing your levels dramatically. Really, we're just trying to get that to at least over 20, if not up to 30. But once you get up, if I see someone who's supplementing with vitamin D and they're level 70 or 80, I say, let's cut back. You don't need to take so much. When you go to buy a vitamin D supplement, a lot of times they're in pretty whopping doses. Most people really don't need much of a supplement to kind of get their levels into the normal range. Um, Usually, I mean, 600 IU to 800 IU, maybe 1,000 is usually enough for most people to take per day to keep their levels in the normal range. And everyone's different on, whether you need a supplement or not, if you can get enough through sunshine or not. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dr. Pierce?
Great info. I think this is a controversial topic. Um, Vitamin D is, I think, is mostly a marker for chronic conditions and suboptimal health. But the studies that look at, oh, when you take a group of people with low vitamin D and you add supplements, do you actually see improvements over the long run? And many are not. And so some docs are like, never ever check another vitamin D level again, and if you do, this is malpractice. And other docs are like, oh yeah, you should check your vitamin D level every month, and we're going to get you up to a vitamin D level of 80 and everything's going to be better. And so it's a controversial topic. How I totally agree. Less than 20 is considered deficiency. Less than 30, or between 20 and 30, is insufficiency. A lot of people say, hey, check it at least once. If your value in a higher risk person, if your value is low, then supplement and get more time in the sun. I'm a huge fan of safe time in the sun, protecting particularly your face with hats and sunscreen, because this is the area that's particularly hard to remove early precancerous lesions and early skin cancers, because there's not a lot of extra tissue. If you get a cancer on your nose, you got to go through expensive, painful surgery where they take a slice and send it to the pathologist and see if they got it all, and if not, take another slice. And it's you want to avoid that. So get the sun mostly on your arms, legs, whatever, back, whatever. 10, 15, maybe up to 30 minutes, depending on your skin tone. People with darker skin tone need longer in the sun to get their vitamin D levels up. And depending on where you are compared to the equator, the further you are from the equator, and during the closer you are to winter months, you might not be able to get your adequate vitamin D from the sun. But I think a lot of us look at it as a marker of, you need to get outside more. So if your vitamin D level is 15, I don't want you to continue the lifestyle that you're leading plus just add vitamin D. That's probably not gonna help you. If someone says, hey, look, my vitamin level is 15, I'm inside all the time because of work, and then I'm on the screen a lot, and when I get home, I'm tired and I just want to watch TV and blah blah blah. I understand. I'm not pointing fingers, but because it's common and it's easy to do. But that vitamin D level of 15 is a marker that we need to get outside more. And because getting outside for a hike, for a walk every morning, for a hike in the afternoon, etc., is going to help you not only get your vitamin D up, but with all the other things that are associated with walking outside in nature. So that's how I look at it.
Perfect. Love it. And boy, we are already at the hour. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Pierce. Looks like we're going to put up some links here on stuff that we talked about earlier. But I always appreciate you, Dr. Pierce, coming on. Do you want to just talk quickly about this Superfood Garden Summit that's coming up?
Yes, thank you. I am going to be one of the 12 speakers for the Superfood Garden Summit coming up. I like to grow, our family likes to grow a lot of our fruits and vegetables, and this is a talk coming up in July, led by Stacy Murphy's team from Grow Your Vegetables, which is they're just a wonderful group, and I think there's going to be some nice stuff talked about here. So it's free if you catch it live, and there's like an extra package if you want more help to get growing. But totally free to join and watch. If you're interested, we're going to be talking about why I think all of us should be growing at least a little of our own food.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Looking forward to that. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again, Dr. Pierce. We should just do this, on a regular basis. And if you have not had the pleasure of working with one of our doctors yet, now is the time. Maybe you are suffering from some of these chronic lifestyle related conditions. You just need a doctor who is on your side and supportive of your lifestyle, lives your, the lifestyle that you have as a goal. Maybe you want to get off medications. Well, please come visit us at telehealth.love.life. Make an appointment. We have 5 fantastic doctors. We cover almost all 50 states and international. You can go to our website, which is right there, telehealth.love.life, or you can give us a call at 888-420-7284. We would love to talk to you. Until next time, I'm Dr. Nikki Davis with Love Life Telehealth.